Let's take a look in Perek Beis of Shmos, and we're beginning now Sefer Shmos in the Meshech Chochma, and we'll look at Psukim Yudalid and Tesvav Vayomer. Mi samcha leish sar v'shofet olenu halageni ata omer kasher haragtu as hamitzri vayira Moshe vayomar achein noda hadavar vayishma paro es hadavar hazeh vayavakesh larog es Moshe. So let's just read the English translation. He replied to Moshe, "Who appointed you as a dignitary, a ruler, and a judge over us? You mean to kill me as you murdered the Egyptian?" Moshe was frightened, and he thought, "Indeed, the matter is known." Pharaoh heard about this matter and sought to kill Moshe. So Rashi says that these two combatants who Moshe scolded were none other than Dasan Vaviram, the Rishonim. And according to Pshuta Shemikra, Rashi says, Hadavar, when it says Vayishma Paros Hadavar Hazeh, it's referring to Achein Noda Hadavar. Right? We have the word Davar twice. We have Achein Noda Hadavar and Vayishma Paro Es Hadavar Hazeh. And it's all about the killing of the Egyptian, which we saw in the earlier Pasuk Yud. And therefore, Rashi interprets that Moshe is frightened because if Dasan Vaviran already knew about this, and everyone in Egypt must have known, including Pharaoh, Pharaoh would certainly apprehend Moshe and put him probably to death. Now, if that be the case, it's a little bit strange because in the very next pasuk it says, "Vayishma Paro es hadavar hazeh." It means that he didn't hear about it before. So let's take a look at the Talmud, which is quoted here in the Meshech Chochma, right here at the very beginning of Parshas Shmos. He says, "Achein noda hadavar malamed shaya Moshe maharher ma ra HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'shabed es Yisrael yosem mishara umos ad shebo dasan vaviran sha'asu bo dilturia hal shana." They snitched. Olchu v'omru leparo mevazehu al pufriya ve'al ator shalcha. Unbelievable. Two Jews that say about Moshe, who killed a Mitzri in order to defend another Jew, say to Paro that this person is humiliating, meaning Moshe is humiliating your very important garments, your kingly royal garments, and your crown. Amar lehem ye'orev lo u'misayel lesonin v'yad bikesh lahargo. So according to the Yalkut, it comes out that Dover Hazeh, which Paro heard about, was a result, or what resulted from it was that he decided to kill Moshe. And what was it? It was not the Harigas HaMitzri, but something else. It just says that Moshe is being accused here of being Mavazeh, the Parfuria, and the Atorah of King Pharaoh. So therefore, Reb Meir Simcha is going to reinterpret Hadavar Hazeh. The Davar Hazeh sheshama Paro mipi dasan vaviran yochel yos dafka daito shel Moshe. Daito shel Moshe. Inochechusam shel dilturin bein bnei Yisrael he sibas hishtabdusam hakoshe eitzel param. So the Alkin understands that achein noda davar, it means The matter that puzzled me for so long, Moshe is saying, has now become clear. No doubt. I used to ask why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu see fit to subjugate this nation more than any of the other 70 nations? Are they worse than any of the other nations? Why do they suffer? But upon seeing the likes of my own brothers, the wicked Dasan Vaviran, the informers, I see that they are deserving of such punishment. And the Yalkut concludes by saying that these two Rishon proceeded to go to Paro to inform him of several things about the print of Mitzrayim. First, they told Paro that Moshe is humiliating the royal clothing that the king wears and the crown that the king represents. But it was not until they told him that not only does he not support you, but he is also aiding your enemies. That's the end of the Alkut. Paro at that point made the decision that he's going to kill Moshe. And in the Yalkut, Rav Nachman is quoted as saying that Paro would have been okay with all this Lashon Hara until they told him that Moshe is not his real grandson. And that's when he decreed his death. The Rabbanan disagree with Rav Nachman. They say that even this Pharaoh excused what broke the camel's back was when they informed him that Moshe murdered an Egyptian. So there's layer upon layer of Lashon Hara until they accomplish their mission to destroy Moshe's reputation and have him killed. So that's what bothered us at the outset. When did Paro exactly learn of Moshe's action? According to the Yalkut, it only occurred after Moshe's encounter with Dasan Vaviran. And if that be the case, then the flow of the psukim is maintained. But Meir Simcha wants to sharpen up this Pshuto Shel Mikra even further. There were 4 accusations which Dasan Vaviran would snitch to Paro. 4 things. It's the last one which they confront Moshe with, and that is Halagregeni Ata Omer Kasher Araktas HaMitzri. Regard to this, that Moshe reacts Achei Noda Dover, and he subsequently is frightened of his future. It's the most egregious, but the fact that they only mention this once to him, according to Amir Simcha, that they were threatening him with not only telling Pharaoh about the murder, but that you have some sort of a murdered psyche, a murderer's psyche. Shofech Domim hu v'hariges HaMisri. That's what it says in the Yalkut. This is already advanced level of Lashon Hara. If they could be so destructive, then Achein Noda Dover. Moshe understands finally why the destiny was for the people of Israel, that they'll be filled with tyranny, turmoil, and subjugation. And is this, by Yishma Paras HaDover Hazeh, the same Dover as in Achein Noda Dover, which means, according to the Rabbanan and the Yalkut, Shofech Domim hu v'hariges HaMitzri. And therefore Paro decides Laragus Moshe. And at the end of this presentation, Rav Meir Simcha writes, Magid Sha'osur lahalshin ulegalos leparo mistorin shal Yisrael. Our people can never afford to reveal our mistorin, to wash our dirty laundry in public. It was precisely that which incited Paro to kill Moshe. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a look here at page Shin Gimel. Second. Okay. And this is Rab Meir Simcha in Parshas Miketz. On Pasuk Mem Aleph, on Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk Chavav, Chav Zayin. This is about the Sheva Paros, Hatovos, and the dream of Yosef. And he writes that Beshara Rotzos Lo Hechinu, in other lands they didn't prepare for the famine. Ohoya Nirkeves, or maybe whatever they prepared got spoiled. וכמו שאומרו רז"ל, לכן לא כתיב ותעמודנה. והנה במצרים לא היה שבע שני רוב, כי בעוד היה יעקב פסק הרעב בארץ מצרים. When Yaakov came to Mitzrayim, the Ra'av terminated. Aval b'shar haratzos, hoya Ra'av kol shevet shanim, v'zeu she'omar chalom echad hu hora achas, shevet shanim heina. He writes, this is Rab Meir Simcha at the beginning of Parshas Miketz, Perek Mem Aleph, and it's Pasuk Lamed Gimel. The Ata Yireh Paro Ish Navom Chacham Yishisu Al Eretz Mitzrayim. Hine Paro Haya Kadosh LeHaMitzrim. The Mitzrim considered Paro to be like a deity, a holy person. V'lohaya darko lahavit al halichos b'nei adam v'darkei midinoso. V'yos gavoa me'al gavoa shomer. It means that Paro was so high up as a deity that he didn't look at what was going on in this world amongst Bnei Adam and what was going on in the governing of his state. Ugvoim aleim oz yarbe oshek v'gezel. The culture of Egypt was full of corruption, of theft. Oila Oretz Asher Soreha Rabin. Its officers were just falling apart, so to speak, under the bureaucratic weight. L'chein haya b'Mitzrayim ivus hadin, a perversion of justice, was kazeh lahoshev beis asurim. They would incarcerate a person al dvar prati Ishmi Medina Rechoka Kol Yoma. They would throw into jail someone who came from a foreign land, a far-off land, even though it's Aldover Prati. He's not a spy. V'yeh kolu lo mishpat, and he'll be incarcerated without any fair trial. V'lachein asa kol sar lefi ritzon nafsho. Every officer could make his own decision because of the fact that the king is not involved. Paro, he's too high up. And there are so many sarim, and there's so much bureaucracy, and the king is not interested in being mashgiach. L'chein asa kol sar lefi tzarah l'chein heru lo b'chalomo haparos tchilo. Why was Yosef shown first the dream about the cows? Laharos shebeshvila behemos modia Hashem leparo asher bal yigva'u berav. Your land and your culture is so corrupt. The only reason I'm going to spare you from the Ra'av is because of Nebuch the Behemos. They don't deserve to die. So God notifies Paro through this dream that as a result of the compassion for the animals, God will protect the Egyptians from Ra'av. Ubishvil Behema Yoshi Hashem. Ulazeh Omar, Val Hishano Sachalom Pamayim, Viata Yorei Paro Ish Navon V'Chacham Ish Dafka V'Lo Eloki V'Kadosh. You're up there as a divine deity, but appoint someone in charge of the land who's got feet on the ground. He's not a holy saint. Ushleimuso Yesh Yeda Darkei Animus V'Aseder. He would know how to organize the running of the country, the government, the governing of the country, and to set everything in its proper way. Yishisu al kol eretz Mitzrayim shal biyado hakol. V'imsar echad yavos b'mishpat ya'aves b'mishpat. Ya'ayin l'mala mimenu asher yirev lo yuchal adam l'meva dini l'nafshi bilti odia l'sar al kol Mitzrayim. So now we have an officer, which is Yosef, who's appointed over all of Egypt, and anyone who tries to deviate and to pervert justice, well, there's someone, a high officer up on top now, who is supervising. V'alzeh mora hakdomas haparos al ivus mishpat shebe'eretz Mitzrayim. V'kasher also Omar re'ena v'abeit al kol darkei anhagas hamedina ginasati otzcha al kol eretz Mitzrayim. Ve'im yeh eze ivut mishpat miyodcha yevukash ni'isyaches hadover l'cha levad. V'lachein kasher Omad Yosef v'rotza lesar es echov l'lo mishpat klali v'chavas das kahol Omad meraglim atem shezeh dover anogeh l'malchus asher zeh lo yeh b'mishpat hakol b'fursa v'zeu she'omer lo ani paro mitzon lomar shemora al memshola elokis b'lashon Mitzrayim. The ein kvodi labid al alilos b'nei adam v'tachulosam u'beladecha ki atot hashkiach al kol hamishaveh b'eretz Mitzrayim. Okay, now let's take a look at the beginning of Parshas Yisro. Here it's on page Reish Lamed Vav. So we're looking now in Perek. Second. Perek Yud Ches Pasuk Yud Aleph. Ki b'davar asher zadu aleim, which is, if you take a look in Nehemiah Perek Tes, ki yodata ki hezidu aleim. Al derech tzachus, meaning, if you want to get a sharp insight here, ki yodua mashekosva kadmonim, he refers to the Ramban as one of the kadmonim. After Kodesh Baruch Hu Amar ki ha-Mitzrim yavdu osam, that the Mitzrim will enslave the Jewish people. Because those lo kivein l'shem shamayim. Even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu already had declared that the Jewish nation would be subjugated, but nevertheless, the Mitzrim didn't have that kavanah l'shem shamayim. And that's what it means in Nehemiah, in that same pasuk. It says, "Vatitein osos umotzim befaro b'chol avad b'chol arzo af ki yodati mizeh v'yadi oscha machrachas." But b'chol zos nenchu, why? Ki hezidu aleim. Hezidu means that their intention was a deliberate intention. The punishment for the Mitzrim, even though Hashem knew, and it was part of a divine plan that Bnei Yisrael should be enslaved, nevertheless, the Mitzrim, were not interested in fulfilling the will of God. That's ki ezidu aleim. Now, we're going to take a look at Vayikra Chav Dalet Pasuk Yud. V'sipra lanu atam madua hirchika Mitzri milavel akol adar shlishi. Why is it that we're not allowed to marry a Mitzri or Mitzris for the 3 generations? Mipnei shelo pasak zu moshalem adar shlishi. The Araya, at the end of Parshas Zemar, Mitzri Haya Makala. Which Mitzri was he? He was a Mitzri chain. So to get rid of the Zuama, we have to wait till Dar Shlish. Now let's take a look in Parshas Shmos, Ra'ora Isi. Ra'ora Isi Ace Oni Ami B'Mitzrayim V'zos HaKosam Shamati Mipnei Nogsha. Omar says, Ramei Simcha Shamati Tzakas Haprotim. So when it says in Lashon Rabin, Tza'akasam, it's referring to the prat. Each person is a yachid, and therefore the Torah employs the plural, the grammatical plural. So why the emphasis on each individual member and his tza'aka? Lo shekol echad tzoik el atzmo mipnei shu nilchatz. It's not because of a person crying out for his own suffering. Because again, if it was his own personal suffering, it would have said Tza'ak Osehem. That the individual Jew was crying out on behalf of the entire generation, the entire nation. Kol echad ein choshesh al atzmo befrat, rak al chilul klolus kvod ha'uma ve'ha'am. And let's fast forward to Lamed Vav. This is Perek Gimel of Sefer Shmos, Pasuk Tezayin. Pakod pakadati eschem, v'eskol asui lachem b'Mitzrayim, v'yomer aleh estitchem b'nei Mitzrayim. Aleh oschem mi'oni Mitzrayim. Pirish Abba Morizal, al derech hatziur, Diyadua divrei razal, so Gemara Rosh Hashanah. Ki Hashem Yisbarach b'daito shokel b'me'oznei tzedek ashiyesh lizkos u'mashiyesh l'chayim. So this is the judgment of God. The Amru no say Ava Vazchus Machbid Vakol b'mashal Kifishi Yadua Shikol Adorei Tzal Tmim Dein Kmo Shekasav Rambam. Okay, so this is, I was hoping you would have the Rambam's nusach here. Luchas Shuv Perek Gimel Halacha Beis. Adam shavanosa meruben al zchuyosa miyalu meis berisho. V'chein medina shavonoseh meruben miyad hi ovedes. Ein shoklin ela b'daito shel kel deos. V'hu hayodea heich orchim hazchuyos keneged avonos. V'chein hakasuv medaber kan pakod pakadati shtei pkidos. Eschem humitzad Yisrael sheferu bris mila v'ovden avodah zarah. Afroani es ha'osui lachem b'Mitzrayim, kochi hashibud vatzoros, shemavirin eschem al das konom, and therefore amaznayim shkulin. We have scales that are actually balanced. There's no tipping in the scale here. So on the one hand, the Jewish people are guilty of very serious violations like bris milah and avodah zarah, but on the other hand, there's asui lachem b'Mitzrayim shibud and the tzaros of Mitzrayim that make you crazy. You can't think straight. The Gazra Chazdo lios no say avon umachpid ma'oznei hashibud. Izeu v'omer ele eschem neged ma shani roa me'oni Mitzrayim ha'oni v'hashibud farach machpid ha'aznayin. So Hashem, with the greatness of his chesed, decided to be a nosei avon Umachbid ma'oznei hashibud. Now let's just see at the beginning of Parshas Va'era, and this is where we're going to have to end for today, because I already taught whatever I had to teach for today. But at the beginning of Parshas Va'era, and here it appears on page Mem Hey in my edition. He goes through the Daled Lashonos of Geula, Votseisi, and he interprets Votseisi based on a pasuk in Dvarim, Lahotzi goy mikerev goy. That's the word lahotzi. And he compares it to Ubra b'toch isha, which means when the baby is born from the mother's womb. V'zeu hotza kamo lahotzi mi beten. Right, that's a pasuk in Eov, lahotzi mi beten, yitziasi mi beten. So this means that Votseisi, I'm going to create a new nation out of the Jewish, potential, so to speak. And it's goy mikerev goy. I mean, because Chazal say that to some extent we were mixed in with the, Egyptians. Now, in addition to Votseisi, we have Vitzalti, Viga'alti, and V'lakachti. And he quotes the famous Yerushalmi and Arik Psochim, Keneged Dalit Shonot Shel Geula, we have Dalit Kosas. Votseisi, Vitzalti, Viga'alti, V'lakachti. So we spoke about Votseisi, that's Goy Mikerev Goy, and now Vitzalti. Says Rameir Simcha, Yitochen Lahatzil, Kishenochri Rodef Osa. When they're being pursued by the Goyim, then there's Hatzola. Avalo Kishem Rodfim Ze et Ze. Shalogilu Mistorin Shebahem. In other words, if the Jewish people are, so to speak, tattletaling one on the other, and they're being Megala Mistorin, then they don't deserve Hatzola. But the reason why Vitzalti is because Hanochri Rodef Osam. They're being pursued by a Noch. Viga'alti, She'avad Rucho, She'evid Rucho Shfela. So the opposite of Geula is called a Ruach Shfela, when we're in a very low state as a slave, being humiliated. And that's the opposite of redemption and freedom. So that Viga'alti, which refers to like Geula Sadeh, and even perhaps an Eved, you could be Goel and Eved, it means to remove the Shibud and make the Eved into a Ben Chorin. And Rabbi Simcha adds, Zemitzat she'eno margish yachas avosa. The Eved Lesle Chayes. He's lacking that relationship to his forefathers. And Rabbi Simcha wants to shed a new light on Loshinu Eshmosam. It means that the Shemos, like Ruvain and Shimon, remind us of their yachas to the Avos. So in that sense, Geula means going back to your roots, back to your Avos, of Loshinu Eshmosam. And finally, V'lakachti Eschem Lili Am, Shaloshinu es Lishona. That parallels the fact that they didn't change their language. And hoyumakavim lageula, they were waiting with breathlessly for the redemption, for the nationhood that would emerge with freedom. And that's v'lakachti eschem lila am, sha'am godel chashivuso b'Mitzrayim. They already became very important in Mitzrayim, again, not in the eyes of the Mitzrayim, but kipi amidaber aleichem shayim makom hayimakavel li'asid v'yomar pakod pakadati. Now, why were these 4 Lashonos of Gula connected to 4 cups of wine? Shehem ayu nig'olim b'shvilo shevdilu atzma mi'amitzrim. All these 4 promises were a reflection of their separation from the Mitzrim. And this is going to repeat itself throughout Jewish history. We will separate ourselves from the nations in which we find ourselves exiled, the Yu Mitsuyanim, and we will be exceptional. And that's going to bring about our ultimate redemption. Mora al yayin. Why is it that this is all set up on yayin? The ain mora al havdola yosem yayin. Yayin is something that's mora al havdola. Kmo shaloshon Haman or Hamin. Which pasuk is he referring to? Oh, Yeshno, this is Haman talking. So he says here, Kmo Lashon Haman, Yeshno am echad mefuza mefared, means it's a nation of Havdalah. Im zvuv nofel lekoso, Adoni Amelech, meaning Achashverosh, no ge'abahem chov tov v'karka v'lo od. Even if Achashverosh would just simply touch the wine, chov tov v'karka. And mediach kos shalosh pa'amim. He'll rinse out his cup 3 times. Because so the real Havdalah is to separate yourself from drinking their wine. And that's why the Dalit Kosos were established over wine. So these are some of the topics that we covered for today. And I think the most important topic of them all is Rameir Simcha's insight into Achein Noda Davar and Vayishma Paro Es Hadavar Hazeh. And what is the Davar? Either the Davar could be the murder of the Mitri, or the Davar is the Malshinus of Nadav of Dasan Vavira. And that's where Rameir Simcha develops this idea based on the Yalkut that these 2 Rishayim went to Paro to inform Paro about Moshe, and not because Moshe killed the Mitzri, but because Moshe is humiliating the royal clothing and the crown of the kingship. And that's why Paro decided, Vayishma Paro Sadavar Hazeh Vayivakesh Larages Moshe. According to Rameir Simcha, it wasn't because Paro heard about the murder of the Mitzri. It was about this Malshinus, in which Dasan Vavir were telling Paro that Moshe is basically rebelling against. This is the Lashon Hara on the most profound level.